Hello, I'm Jan Ślewiński. Welcome on board the Eastern Express. And as always, I hope you enjoy the journey. On this episode, we turn our attention to Belarus, a country often described as Europe's last dictatorship. And apparently, it is now auditioning for the role of Europe's first nuclear Airbnb host. Belarus is now reportedly home to Russian tactical nuclear weapons. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is this part of some new reality show? Nukes and Neighbors? The real dictators of Eastern Europe? Well, unfortunately, it is not. Satellite imagery and on-the-ground intel confirm that Russia is building out full operational infrastructure for short-range nukes at several Belarusian military sites. So, that whole union state thing, it's starting to look less like an alliance and more like a real estate deal, where Belarus provides the land and Russia brings the missiles. Without further ado, let's take a look at that latest report to find out more.
The shadow of the spectre of nuclear war has been stretching farther and farther with each bloody day the war in Ukraine has added to its toll. Over the last 3 years, Russia has been more than eager to reach for nuclear rhetoric, threatening to use its arsenal under very vague conditions. Now, recent reports point to Russia developing its nuclear weapon infrastructure, and not just at home. A lot of this work has been taking place in Belarus following the signing of a deal between Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko a few months back. Many believe this deal brought the two autocracies closer, along with the aforementioned spectre.
President Putin, I don't think he truly understands what nuclear weapons mean for human beings, what kind of weapons these are. I don't think he has even thought about this or understood this.
Russia's nuclear arsenal is essentially the main reason as to why NATO has not put boots on the ground in Ukraine. Although it is often vague in its threats, the one that Moscow has left few doubts about is a very harsh response should Western troops formally show up on Ukrainian soil. While Russian authorities have threatened to use nukes under various different circumstances, in this case, it is not a bluff that the West is willing to call. Not when the result could be death on a scale unfathomable to the eyes of history.
And now we're zoning in on the East-splaining portion of our show. The day the first nuclear weapon was detonated, the face of war changed forever. Today, there are thousands of nuclear weapons available to some of the world's most powerful countries. Yet everyone else is discouraged from developing their own, even if they could potentially have the means to do so.
The Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons Treaty, the pact whose aim is to prevent the further spread of nuclear arms, is what keeps this horrible and powerful technology in check. It has been ratified by the world's leading nuclear powers like Russia, the US and China, and has so far been very effective at its objective. In exchange for not pursuing nuclear weapons, the states which support the treaty receive assistance when it comes to peaceful nuclear technology. Although it is worth pointing out that the pact also gives these leading powers a kind of monopoly on nukes. But they're not the only ones who support this treaty. Japan is perhaps its biggest proponent, as the only country in history to have suffered a nuclear strike and not just once. Despite this treaty's hitherto effectiveness and everyone involved being aware of the civilizational danger posed by nuclear weapons, it has not stopped Russia from recently deploying its own nuclear arms to Belarus. What's more concerning, in addition to this being a violation of the treaty, is that statements by Lukashenko suggest that Belarus has operational control over the nuclear weapons stationed in his country. Russia has said that the decision to launch the weapons from Belarus would be made by both countries. Nonetheless, this decision marked a gross escalation of tensions in the Eastern European region and raised eyebrows even among Russia's closest partners, such as China.
And now, as always, it's time to take a look at the issue in greater detail. Belarus hasn't exactly been a beacon of independence since it gained it back in 1991. In the 1990s, it flirted with the West briefly, and by flirted, I mean it made awkward eye contact before Lukashenko pivoted hard towards Moscow. He has held on to power through sham elections and good old-fashioned authoritarianism, and in return, Russia has treated Belarus like its pet project, one that occasionally talks back, but only until its allowance is threatened. And let's not forget, Belarus used to have nuclear weapons. After the fall of the Soviet Union, thousands of warheads were actually stationed there. However, in 1994, under the Budapest Memorandum, yes, the same one Russia wiped its boots on in Crimea, Belarus agreed to give them all up in exchange for security guarantees and promises of sovereignty. Fast forward 30 years, and Belarus is once again a nuclear host, this time without even the illusion of autonomy. And now fast forward to today's ticking time bomb. Lukashenko recently bragged that Belarus was ready to host Russia's new Oreshnik hypersonic missile system. Lukashenko's exact words were, "They haven't even noticed when we brought them here. Which is a terrifying thing to say when you're talking about nuclear weapons. But make no mistake, this isn't about Belarus wanting nukes. This is about Russia needing Belarus. With Kaliningrad increasingly monitored, Crimea under threat, and the Suwałki Gap too tight for comfort, Belarus gives Moscow a convenient launchpad to menace NATO's eastern flank. Russia is effectively forward deploying weapons of mass destruction just outside NATO territory, gambling that the West will keep blinking first. And so far, that bet is paying off. Let's be clear, these are tactical nuclear weapons, not the ICBMs that flatten continents. But tactical here is misleading. The term doesn't mean small, it means usable, shorter range, battlefield purpose, faster deployment, and very, very dangerous. So where does that leave us? Well, NATO has been watching, but not reacting in kind, for now. Washington and Brussels are caught between reassuring allies and avoiding a direct escalation. Meanwhile, Belarus is rapidly losing even the pretense of sovereignty. It's now a launchpad, a liability, a client state with a dictator too weak to say no and too arrogant to realize what he's allowed onto his soil. Back in 1994, Belarus gave up its nukes to make the region safer. Today, it's voluntarily becoming a radioactive pawn in Putin's war game, because if Russia can redeploy nukes in Belarus now, what's to stop it from doing the same in a liberated eastern Ukraine? Or worse. In the nuclear game of chicken, Belarus is no longer the driver. It is a hood ornament. And now, here to shed more light on the issue is Dimmitri Bulkunets, Forum of Democratic Forces of Belarus. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Yeah, hello.
So it seems that we're having more and more information, receiving more and more information, confirming that Osipovichi in central Belarus is to be used as a potential launch pad for Russian tactical nuclear missiles. How does it change the calculus for NATO's security and also for the security of Ukraine?
So I believe Putin planning control all eastern part of Europe, and Belarus is very strategical region for Kremlin, and that is why Putin will be show his opportunity how he will use Belarus territory. Also nuclear weapons and other probably military exercises or something else. And Putin also wanted to ask, just probably game Putin against US, because he many times told for DC that he not allowed when nuclear weapons from US in Europe, for example, in Germany. And probably it's also a game. If US, for example, decided to flew from Germany, Putin told Putin will discuss about necessary not to use Belarus as a country where nuclear weapons will be. But it's very, very important now understand for Euro Union that Belarus is one of the key for security in Europe, because some politics not think about that. It's very important that democratization in Belarus is very important for security in Europe. Another way, Putin will, or another man who will be in Kremlin after Putin, he will be using Belarus for creating new iron curtain. It's dangerous and it's very historical mistake for future.
So Putin wants to create an impression that Belarus, as far as he is concerned, is supposed to be beyond the reach of democratic change, right? He wants to show everyone that, look, we've got nuclear weapons there. If you're trying to think about supporting reform in Belarus, don't you even dare. Do you think he's going to be successful in that? Because, well, the Soviet Union actually had nukes too, and that did not stop the democratization, which was brief in Russia's case, but at least it led to the collapse of the USSR.
So I think nuclear weapons on Belarus is also safety for authoritarian country, for dictatorship and for Kremlin control under Belarus. Because, yes, of course, when somebody have weapons or nuclear weapons, it's easy control territory, because it's also important for safer power for some oligarchs or some other guys who ruling who in power in Kremlin or in Belarus. And I believe Putin also, when he decided to using Belarus for nuclear weapons of Russia, he saw a way, tried to show that Belarus is full under control of Russia empire. It's very important for Germany, for France, for US, and some countries, as I mentioned, as they believe that Belarus is not independent in eyes of world countries from the another world, because most of them believe and know that Lukashenko is in total under control of Putin. And any changes in Belarus and probably in Russia, I hope will be after Lukashenko and Putin will be not in power. Because these guys, they're from the Soviet Union, they have mentality of Soviet Union, and they just not support any democratic movement. And I think it's a very dangerous period, because some authoritarian countries now united, like North Korea, Belarus, Russia, Iran, etc. And so union of authoritarian countries is also shows that democratic countries cannot effective instrument to change situation in so authoritarian countries, like was situation in Venezuela, in Belarus, etc.
So do you think we're effectively returning to what we've already seen during the Cold War? Because Belarus, back then, it did host nuclear weapons, among others, but they were essentially Soviet weapons, because this was, well, part of the Soviet Union. And a related question, how should NATO react to it?
So I believe, yes, we are step in the new Cold War. We are near a new Iron Curtain between Belarus and Euro Union. And I believe NATO have instrument how to stop this military aggression, Putin and Lukashenko against Ukraine, against NATO countries. Firstly, trade opportunities, close border, close any logistic communications for Russian ships from Petersburg to another countries, because now Russia continue trade with Euro Union, with NATO countries, and when NATO care about security, they must be stop finance any this trade communication between Russia and Belarus. And also, I think very, very important, if countries which believe they are democratic must be believe that FSB Russia and KGB of Belarus must be recognized as terrorist organizations. It's very important also for future, for security, and it's I think for these steps, politics must be have a very strong decision. But now I not believe that NATO have some instrument to stop Putin aggression, because look, in September in Belarus will be new military exercises, and it's also will be very dangerous for Lithuania, for example, because if Putin decided to attack Lithuania, what will be doing NATO? What will be doing Portugal or France or Italy? I not believe they will be support Lithuania.
But
I
don't you believe that
And-
Article 5 is going to work? Because this is the fundament of what NATO is supposed to be about. NATO has also announced that it would be holding military drills at roughly the same time as the ones held in Belarus in order to show its resilience, right? So it's not like NATO is not responding to it at all.
Yes, but never this articles was used. And it's a question. And Putin
It was used
wanted
once
to-
in favor of the United States when it was attacked on 9/11. So the United
yes,
States
but,
was the
but-
recipient of the benefits of
Yes,
Article 5,
yes.
effectively.
But it's not attack for military attack for against country. It's never history, never precedent in history. And Putin wanna destroy NATO. Putin wanna destroy Euro Union. Putin wanna destroy security in Europe. And Putin wanna control situation in as minimum in post-Soviet countries. Like Ukraine, Belarus, also Baltic states, because he need control Baltic Sea, etc. And I believe also very important that situation that now in Belarus is dangerous because people have an opportunity to travel without borders. Now we have a big border, we have a big wall between Belarus and Euro Union, and people who stay in another wall, another side of wall, they cannot change situation because some of them never been in Europe. And in these days, I start my own project. I just wanted to organize around tour from Warsaw to Portugal by bike, and I wanted to show Belarusians who watch my TV, YouTube, how living in Europe without borders, how people living here. Because I believe when people in Belarus also who stay now in the dictatorship will be understand that the future must be without borders. The future must be without war. It's very important. Then future is under pressure. Future with dictatorship, because it's opportunities. And I believe also very important when some persons who in power or have some position in Belarus government, they must be also change his mind, because no way to go to Soviet, post-Soviet, or in past-Soviet, because I think Belarus must be changed. And it's not time we will have opportunity to see any changes in Russia, in Belarus also, because Putin and Lukashenko, they're too old, more than 70 years, and I hope they are in the end of this era. And what will be and what will be after this politics? Who will be after that? It's a question that we will discuss about in near future, 5, probably 10 years, but it's not a big history period. And I know and I see that now probably NATO and US and some other European countries, they're just waiting when Putin and Lukashenko go to retire, or new persons will be in power in these countries.
And in the meantime, societies in those countries are suffering. So perhaps the West should also rearrange its priorities. And as you're saying, understand that Belarus is critical to the whole puzzle of security in Central and Eastern Europe. Dimmitri Bulkunets was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now we're moving on to Eastern News Flash, a series of all the other stories from the East that you absolutely don't want to miss. A report by Inform Napalm, a volunteer open-source information community, warns that Russian services are preparing false flag terror attacks in several regions. These are meant to coincide with Russia's Victory Day parades on the 9th of May.
The aim of these alleged false flag attacks is to first of all pin the blame for them on Ukraine and sabotage the ongoing international peace efforts. The occasion itself would not be a coincidence, as May 9th is the day when Russia celebrates its victory over Nazi Germany. The anniversary has been used by the Kremlin to draw comparisons with the current war in Ukraine. Although reportedly all of Russia's security forces have been deployed to protect the sites of the celebrations, some areas such as Khabarovsk have been left underguarded, facilitating any possible terror attacks. These would in turn justify Moscow in pursuing expanded mobilization efforts and galvanize parts of Russian society against Ukraine. Sources close to Inform Nepal believe that Russia's security service, the FSB, initially considered staging the attacks in Moscow itself, but dropped the idea over fears of them spiraling out of control.
Hungary's Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó says that Kiev must simply accept Budapest's blocking its EU accession. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been highly critical of this decision.
The feud between Kiev and Budapest comes as the latter has organized a referendum to gauge Hungarians' opinion over Ukrainian EU membership. The entire affair has been accompanied by both anti-EU and anti-Ukraine campaigns. Hungary's foreign minister has criticized the harsher tone Ukrainian authorities have adopted towards Budapest and its opposition to Ukrainian membership. Zelensky said that Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's decision to block the bid was not a domestic Hungarian matter, but an attempt to interfere with a sovereign country's choices. He also said that he believed that as many as 70% of Hungarians supported Ukraine's accession to the European Union. The Hungarian government under Orban has been widely criticized as heavily pro-Russian and has been at odds with EU leadership for the last several years.
Uzbekistan is growing into a true playing field for the world's greatest powers as they are vying for influence in Central Asia. Tashkent itself is more than eager to play ball as it seeks trade and investment opportunities.
Uzbekistan has recently drawn much attention from the world's biggest players. The United States, China and the European Union are all interested in laying hands on the country's critical minerals and energy resources, including the development of nuclear energy. All three of them have had some success in their ventures, while Uzbekistan's traditional ally Russia seems to be falling by the wayside. This shows that Tashkent is very interested in not submitting to just one influence, but playing with all interested parties. While it signs billion-euro worth investments with the EU, Uzbekistan also may be seeking to organize a visit for US President Donald Trump as part of the C5+1 diplomatic summit format. Washington has already described its relations with the country as a mutually beneficial partnership and not a merely aid-based transaction.
And for this episode of Eastern Express, it's the end of the line. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates. I'm Jonasz Rawiński. Bye for now.